PI Show. My name's Harry Nowicki and we're discussing personal injury law. I'm here together with my colleague, Tony Carbone.
Good evening, viewers.
Welcome, Tony. We're back to the bare bones, but there's no guest today, but the show has bite.
That's right.
We're discussing dog cases and injuries arising out of attacks by dogs.
But before we get to that, Harry, I'd like to...
But there's a segment which is what's in the news. So you're going to tell us...
Last week, so... Yeah, look, what's been in the news has been this interesting story of the barrister Nicola Gobbo, who you're pretty familiar with. She's a criminal law barrister, and she went in there to assist the police in that she wore a wire when she had a chat to the infamous Paul Dale, the disgraced policeman. Now, when she wore the wire, the police made all these assurances that she would be looked after and protected and that she wouldn't lose any income. Now, and Paul Dale, apart from anything else, has been accused of the murders of the Hodsons, who most people know. They describe them as small
part of
crooks.
a underbelly
It's like a sting that they were trying to organise.
Gangland murdered at least last 12 months in Melbourne or more.
So what they did was they paid her $1,000 a week for a period of time, and then Nicola Gobbo says that she's hasn't been looked after by the police. In other words, that she fears for her life.
They've broken the agreement. So she's issued proceedings in the Supreme Court of Victoria claiming compensation for the effects on her health, and she's suffering.
And loss of income for the future.
And loss of income. So it's now before the courts. It's an interesting claim. I think it's a difficult claim, but it's creative, it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how...
I think it's a very interesting claim, because if you see her now, she's got a walking stick, she's lost a lot of weight.
She's in distress. There's no doubt about that.
And,
no doubt about that.
And I don't know.
But it's suing the Victorian government, suing the police, and some of those cases are fought very vigorously by the Victorian government solicitor.
Well, Harry, she had big aspirations. I mean, people said that when she was at school, she was talking about becoming Prime Minister, and she graduated from Melbourne Uni.
She was a prominent
her
criminal.
Her uncle was a Supreme Court judge and Governor of Victoria, so she had good pedigree, put it that way.
Yeah, but she's the headline is "Helping Cops Ruined Me," which is what the claim's about, and it's before the courts, so we're interested to see what the outcome was. Keep tuned. Now tonight, Tony, we've got a show about the responsibility of dog owners.
Yes.
And scenarios where people are attacked in Victoria. My understanding is they're talking about banning some breeds of dogs.
Some breeds of dogs.
Because they're inherently vicious.
Well, Harry, the article,
there's an article recently about...
another story in the news, recent story.
About the number of dog attacks in Victoria, which surprises me.
Well, 6 a day. So this article, which was only a few weeks ago, says that there's 6 dog attacks a day.
It was over 2,000 per year.
Yeah,
and I
if you
think
extrapolate.
546 are admitted to hospital.
Which is pretty significant.
That's a significant number. And I think, the cases we'll discuss are mostly there's some elderly people involved who
a lot of children
can't move freely, but also children involved as well. But I think, as you say, the actual number of dog attacks is significant.
It's alarming. Yeah. It's alarming. Yeah. And in a society today where you don't see dogs roaming the streets like you used to, it appears to me that most of these attacks are happening within households. You might go and visit a friend or a neighbour, and they've got their pet dog who's territorial. Obviously, they're okay to the owners, but strangers, all of a sudden they see him, bang, they go for him. Or the stranger might be oblivious to the fact that they've got these propensities and goes and pats the dog, and they get attacked. So,
but as I say, the number of attacks I think is alarming, we'll be discussing some cases. I think the first step is that there's some legislation, meaning that you've got to register dogs, and dogs should be on leashes when.
Yeah, you can't let them roam the streets like they used to back in the 70s and 80s.
In the public. So I think they're the principles. And I think my understanding is that there's a fairly strict liability on the owner of the dog.
The legislation's been amended a few times, Harry. I mean, and originally it looked like a strict liability, but it's probably a higher onus than what we know the law to be. You know, we know it's a reasonable duty of care, but I believe that just as much as you do, that the onus on dog owners is probably a bit
Pretty
higher than
high.
that. Yeah,
It's pretty
yeah.
high. So the starting point is that the legislation, what the duties are by statute on dog owners, you've got to register dog owners.
That's number one.
And I think we had a query once where the dog attacked someone. The attack was very nasty, but there was an issue and the dog was then destroyed. And the council did not keep a record of who the owner was.
Well, I don't know if the dog was registered because they've got chips, I think. That's my understanding. And if they had have registered the dog to start with, before they destroyed it, they would have worked out who.
But there might have been some oversight by a council officer, and the council officer just didn't take a record. So the first step of actually finding out who the owner of the dog was couldn't be established,
That's
and the
right.
person had no claim.
No, well, if you can't work out who owns the dog, it makes it impossible.
Yeah, and we looked about suing the council for being negligent in not recording the owner as well. But that was a difficult scenario. But so the first step is finding out who the owner is. The second step would be finding out what the circumstances were, and then ultimately the injuries. Do you need 5%?
Well, I think this is one area where if you don't get 5%, you'd think that you'd get pretty close to 10 psychiatrically or psychologically because, you know...
But you still need an impairment.
You'd need an impairment.
You need an impairment.
Yeah. But I would have thought that once you get bitten, you know, it's probably long-lasting. You never forget.
Well, there's psychological damage, plus there might be some scarring
I'd be scared.
and some physical damage as well.
You know, I'm amazed at the number of attacks where people get bitten in the face. It's just amazing. You know, it just shows you that these dogs that do attack can jump and...
Well, they're sort of out of control, so they do attack, and as we know, I think there are some breeds of dogs which are quite vicious. So.
Well, Harry, look, we're going to go to this case shortly. I think we've got to go to a break soon, but it's about someone that was going into a soccer club and there was a Rottweiler outside. And the Rottweiler's minding its own business, laying on the ground, just relaxed. And
but we've got to
we'll
come back to that
this.
Case after the break.
I think, look, viewers, stay tuned. Don't go away. We're going to a sponsors break. So we'll be back very shortly. Thank you.